Hello, 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 and welcome to the Blue Oval Podcast. I am Ben Weissel, and joining me, as always, Garrett Zatlin. How's it going, man?
Ben, I can only be good, man. It's national championship weekend, and the content, believe it or not, is actually easier to get out, despite us previewing and talking about every single name, just because it's not D2 and D3. So we will take that for what we can get it, and then we also got two new reviews on Spotify, so that was great. So I'm in a decent mood. National championships, I can dislike it.
Yeah, absolutely. Was that last year when it was all the championships on the same weekend,
No, I
or was
want to say there was a year though like that. I mean, well, indoors. I mean, you get that. Indoors is all the
right?
same weekend, right?
Maybe it was cross
Right.
country. Was it cross country where it was like all the I remember there was like a perfect storm because like D2 had like some weird thing going on where
Well, the cross country was this past fall. Yeah.
okay, yeah. Ugh, I don't envy you in those moments at all. But like you said, we got plenty to talk about just on the D1 side. We're going to be previewing every event on the distance side for men and women. We will be listing our favorites, our dark horses, and our wild cards for each of those events and talk generally about them for as much time as we have. We're gonna start just from. Do we want to start like 800 up? Do we want to start in order of
I'll
the
leave it by
actual
you.
events?
You let me know.
Let's do 800 up. We'll kind of crescendo to the 10K at the end, and that'll be obviously the first one. So if you just want to skip ahead right before the 10Ks, go ahead and listen to the back half of the podcast. But let's start with the women's 800-meter championships. And here, I think, in my mind, there's really only one favorite. I think you could make some arguments for maybe a little bit of a bigger tier. But I think in terms of who your like quote unquote betting favorite pretty clearly would be, I think that's Michaela Rose with a decent amount of distance to anybody else.
I think it's Rose. I struggle to not put Whitaker in there
Yep.
though. I think Rose is and Juliet Whitaker of Stanford, of course, is who we're talking about. But Michaela Rose of LSU, it, she's the favorite. She should be the favorite. She's the fastest. She can outrun the field if she really wants, but that tactic inherently has risk, as we saw during the indoor national meet when Whitaker stuck onto her and then basically outkicked her that last 50 meters. Knowing how good Whitaker has been in the postseason, it's really hard to just be like, well, she's not part of that anymore.
Yeah.
Although I don't know how much has really changed in the last 3 months.
Yeah, and I think just her indoor win is really the only reason you kind of have her there, because you look at her times and you compare some of her results to a lot of these other women who have run two flat or in some cases sub two. It's hard to say that like she should definitely be in that group, but just because of her experience, her championship pedigree, you feel compelled to at least mention that she's kind of that next woman up. It is, I mean, can you really imagine anyone winning besides those two? I guess that kind of leads us to our dark horse category. If there's like someone that could like come out of nowhere.
Yeah, and I think it's like dark horse in what sense? Like dark
Yeah,
horse in terms of like the national title, dark horse in
sure.
terms of making the finals. I think in terms of dark horse of winning the title, you're looking at the Roisin Willis, you're looking at the Gabija Gavadite's kind of range. You could maybe throw in like I don't even know how much after that I would really want to
Yeah.
extend that conversation to. I don't think I'm really willing to extend it past those two. So I'd say I could also see a world where Galvadite pulls off a big upset, Willis pulls off a big upset, as they've both been running exceptionally well. In terms of like my All American sleeper picks, do you have an answer for this yet?
So it's not really a sleeper pick, more as like just the way that the Heat's layout. I
Mm-hmm.
think Michaela Page is in
Ah,
like
you.
an exceptionally good position
Yep.
to like I think she's almost certainly going to make the finals, which is not something that I think you would have felt like that good about before the heat sheets, just because there's so many women in that two flat 201 range. But I think her and Gladys Chepnogorich are the clear favorites to make it out. In my
You have
mind,
her more than Haley Kitching?
I do. Yeah. 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 I like Kitching too, but I think the way both Chepnogorich and Page are running right now, I think they are probably the favorites, and they avoided a lot of the other like top women, and so I think that's a really good heat for them. And I really like both Page and Chepnogorich. Chepnogorich is actually my X factor because I think there could be a lot of different scenarios, or my wild card, excuse me. There's a lot of different scenarios for her going into this weekend.
Yeah, X Factor wild card, somewhat synonymous.
Yeah,
Yeah, I still think I like Kitching a bit more. I think she's just a safer pick. I think she's a bit more proven, but you're absolutely right. Paige got a phenomenal draw with that heat. I could not agree more. I still think it's like it can be fast enough where she can get a time qualifier, but it
yeah,
can also be fast enough to the point where like it can also be in a position where she just gets an auto. So
sure.
I agree. I think that's a huge win for her. My sleeper, my dark horse, my X Factor. Well, I guess I have to give my sleeper for All American, right?
Yeah,
Lauren Tolbert. Lauren, she's run 52 seconds over 400 meters to win the ACC title over 400 meters, 201. She's been pretty good this season, really steady. Her best two results of her career have been the last two races. I think and she's also again in that first heat, that very favorable
yes,
first heat. If there's anyone who's going to surprise as an All American, I think it would be her. In terms of my X factor, in terms of like not really knowing what the heck is going to happen with them, I think that's Victoria Balsong of Harvard. Um, Two flat at the beginning of the season, takes down Haley Kitching, which is huge. She hasn't exactly been like amazing as of
lights out.
late.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not terrible, but it hasn't been exactly great either. And I don't exactly know what version we're going to get from her, especially because this is her first time on the national stage over 800 meters, and this is also kind of her first time being in this tier. So I'll be fascinated to see how she handles a heat that has
it's
Sylvia
brutal.
Tenlegat, Sophia Goriere, Michaela Rose, Sanu Jallo, Kellyanne Beckford, Michaela Clark, Kelsey Schweizer. Between Rose, Jallo, and Beckford alone, those might be the three most aggressive runners in this field, period, of anyone, which is wild.
It's brutal. That's like looking through the heat sheets. This was one. I'll mention the other one in a little bit. That I thought like these were like this was one of the most unfair heats in the entire championships. So that's it. That's going to be absolutely brutal. And you look at the third heat, and it's like I think we pretty much know what's going to happen there in terms of like it just needs to be quick enough for all three women of Galvadite, Willis, and Whitaker to make it through. But I mean, there isn't. It's not nearly as stacked as two, and probably a little better than one. But yeah, one is a lot of different things could happen.
I just want real quick before you move on there.
Mhm.
Look at that third heat though. Like, there's a good chance that that third heat's like relatively slow, and if
Mhm.
that's the case, then like you're looking at someone either of Galvadite, Willis, or Whitaker not making it to the finals.
I do think because it is the third heat, I think there will be
Oh,
some
fair point.
incentive
You're
to
right.
go fast because they know what the time will be.
You're right.
So I hear that concern, but I do think they're like those three women are fast enough, smart enough to make it work.
That's fair. That's true. Yeah.
All right. Anything else before we go to the men's eight?
Nope. That's all I got.
All right, let's move on to the men's 800. And for me, I believe I have two men in my favorites tier. What say you?
I also have two. I think it's Sam Whitmarsh and Yusuf Bizimana.
Absolutely. And then it's like I trying to come up with like a second tier below them. Like I was having a real tough time because there are just a lot of guys clumped together that you could consider like all American favorites, but you don't feel like overwhelmingly strong about that many of them in my mind. Ultimately, I think Whitmarsh enters, I think, as the slight favorite over Busy Mana, just because he's been a little bit more consistent. We've seen a little bit more high end like times from him this season, and he just looks a little bit sharper in general than Busy Mana. That said, Busy Mana obviously knows how to run these championships, has had great success in the past, hasn't run poorly by any means this year, could absolutely take home the title. I think I think you could argue that maybe he's the safest pick to finish like in the top two. But if you had to pick someone to take the win, you would probably go with Whitmarsh.
Absolutely right. I'm not going to repeat exactly what you just said because I would just be saying the same thing. In terms of like, there's so many guys who I think like deserve to be mentioned in this
Yeah,
conversation, but yet they're not sleepers. Like Sean Dolan is not a sleeper.
yeah,
Tyrese Roden is not a sleeper. Usama El is not a sleeper. Rivaldo Marshall, the indoor national title winner, is not a sleeper. Um, it's really hard, especially it's like also like, can you say that Shane Cohen or Reinhard Swainpool are sleepers with 145 marks? Like, it's really, really hard. So I'm going to say that my sleeper, quote unquote, is got to be like a 146 ish kind of guy
yeah.
who's maybe in like a favorable heat, like the third heat. That third heat could
Third
absolutely.
heats. Yeah,
And if that's the case, then like I think I could see Cole Lindhorst making it out.
yeah. I like Cole Lindhorst. I just made my predictions for my first draft predictions, I'll say, and I was
Oh,
very close to putting him in my top eight. I ultimately didn't, just because I like Camden Marshall a little bit better. I do think that it is beneficial that Lindhorst is in the same heat as Busy Mana. That's proven to be, I think, a benefit to him. And I was looking at that first heat, and it's just a clump of guys. I mean, this is insane. You look at El Buchave, Marshall, Shane Cohen, Reinhard Swainpool, Finley McClear, Sebastian Fernandez, Darius Kipiego. Like, all of these guys, like, you could very well see being an All American. Like, and the fact that we're only going to see maybe three, like maybe four of these guys make it, I think that would be a stretch even, it is pretty insane. So ultimately, my dark horse is going to be Finley McClear. I think he just knows how to run these races and will exceed expectations. I don't love like his ability to finish highly at the finals, but I think he's just going to make it, which I think it will surprise a lot of people.
it's just it almost feels insulting to say that someone won't. But like, there's just general math and numbers. Like, I can't believe like I could see McClear finishing as high as like fourth place, but then there's also a scenario where I don't think he makes it.
Where he
Um,
doesn't finish fourth in his prelim,
well,
like
yeah, I mean, like, and it's and I just struggle. Like, I think that first heat is brutal. Um, I
I'm
think
curious to see, how do you think that's going to be run? Like,
I
what do you?
I I don't know. I think it's going to be at least somewhat fast. I think because if with between El Buchebe, I think there's a lot of guys who would benefit from it being fast. But if they all benefit, then no one benefits. Like, does that make
Yeah,
sense? I mean,
someone's got to take it, right? Like, it's not
yeah.
and actually set them up through 400 to be able to run that fast time.
Is it crazy to say that my X factor or my wild card is Rivaldo Marshall?
No, not at all. I think he's someone that we just really don't know. Like, we don't know a ton about. Like, he hasn't been on this level for more than like 6 months, and obviously he came through huge in a huge way at the indoor championships. But we've seen him kind of sputter out a little bit over the last few weeks. Still run well, but just not finish quite as strong as we've seen before. So I think there's a lot of volatility there.
Oh, I'm just looking at your picks now. Wow. This is interesting. Oh, some of your stuff's messed up. There we go. Okay. I'll have to check that out. Yeah, and that's the thing with Rivaldo Marshall. I struggle till I don't know what I'm getting from him all the time because you go back. He was fifth indoors at the Big Ten championships, then
Yeah.
wins the national title, fourth at Big Tens, but he's run 145 this year. Does that translate? Even though the field is probably better this year than it was last year or this last season, I should say. I struggle. I struggle with that a lot. Is there anyone else who you find as like an X factor or a wild card?
For me, it's Reinhard Swainpool. He's been looking great as of late, but I just curious coming out of that first heat again. Like I truthfully don't know how if he's a lock to get out. I think he will, and I think if he does, he'll run well at finals. He's been running exceptionally well. His regional performance was awesome, but I, again, I think you could just pick any of those guys out of your that first heat and say that they're like a wild card because if they make it out of that, then that should indicate that they're really fit and ready to do some damage in the finals. But there's also a good chance that they just don't make it.
Man, I hate this field because it's like one of those fields where you feel like you have to mention everyone and you just
Yeah.
can't. All right, let's move off of this. Let's go to the 1500 meters, which is arguably even more crazy. The women's 1500, I feel like at this point is a conversation of just one.
Yes.
Maya Ramsden. Here's an interesting question that I wanted to pose to you. What is more likely? Parker Valby not winning 2 national titles or Maya Ramsden not winning the 1500-meter title?
You said what is more
What is
or
more
what is
likely? Essentially, is it Parker Valby losing one of her 2 races or
yeah.
Maya Ramsden losing the 1500 meters? She's also qualified in the 5K, but that's
I
neither here nor
I
there.
think it's I think it's more likely that Ramsden wins with the one. Like I just because there could
Wait. It's either what is more likely?
yeah.
Ramsden loses her 15
Oh, sorry.
or
Yeah. I think it's more. Sorry, yeah. My answer is the same, but yeah, I framed it the wrong way. I think it's more likely that Valby loses one of them, just because she has 2 opportunities for something to go wrong, rather than Ramsden just has one, and I just she looks leagues better than everyone else and so under control. Not that Valby doesn't either, but I think it just comes down to like 2 chances is a little bit more volatile than one.
in terms of like how different the All Americans could look from 1500 meters over the
Mm-hmm.
mile, it, are we really like? Could it really be like not different at all?
Yeah, that's true. I that's an interesting point. This field just I truthfully I ran out of all American selection spots during my predictions so super quickly. Like you're just like, oh yeah, this woman has to be in there, and then all of a sudden I'm at number 8 and I'm fresh out.
Okay, so how about this? So here's an interesting this guy. So the women's mile field last year, the top 8 All-Americans, it was Maya Ramsden, Bila Chipkuri, Kimberly May, Melissa Riggins, Margot Appleton, Celia McCabe, Claudia Kazmierska, and Flomena Asicall. Obviously, McCabe and Appleton are not
Yeah.
running the 15 this year. McCabe is not even running at all. And then behind them, it was 2 other women. I don't know if you know who those were. When you look at this field, who were the 2 women that you would then say, okay, then I think these are the 2 women that are going to replace them in that All-American count?
So I think Juliet Cherubit is someone that I like
Hmm.
to be in there. The other one, and this was my like dark horse pick, was Tegan Scheinbecker.
Oh, not who I thought you were going to say. Okay.
I like her a lot. Did you mention Olivia Howe in that group? Was she in that?
No, because this is
Okay.
the mile. This is a women's
Right.
mile.
Yeah. So
So
I think Howe would be the other one, ahead of Scheinbecker in my mind. That would be her and Cherubit.
so the ninth and 10th place finishers from that mile final were Shannon Flockhart and Maggie Congdon, both of whom I could absolutely see.
Yeah.
Like I think Flockhart is borderline favored to be
Sure.
an All
Yeah.
American, and I think Congdon this time doesn't have the 800 prelims under her belt and the mile prelims, like which I think is important to remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is like an interesting group here. Give me your I think we agree. Like Kimberly May's probably like the biggest threat to my Ramsden if there ever was one.
Yeah.
But give me your sleeper pick.
Oh, who did I write down? Because man, there's just so many good options here.
That
I
first heat,
think,
by the way, is stacked.
yeah, I know it's ridiculous. I think Jeff Coury is like a dark horse to just like finish first. Like it is like the one that I have because she's flashed some top end potential. I think she's run really well um, over the course of the season. Hasn't been quite as great as she was at the beginning of the season over the last couple weeks, but she's still been very good. In terms of like an all American like sleeper, that's Tegan Scheinbecker for me. I think she's someone that could crush that party.
I think my sleeper's Mia Barnett. I refuse to believe that like she's just not a nationally competitive runner. Like the times that we've seen from her this season are not too exciting. I think she's capped it at 4:13, which came at the West Regional Championships, and her second fastest time this season was 4:14, which came at the West Regional Championships. She hasn't been perfect, but she also like has just been enough. She's like just been good enough, and like I have enough to believe that she's experienced enough. She has teammates in this field. Teammates, maybe teammates. I don't know if there's more than one organ. Claudia
Teammate,
Kazmierska,
yeah,
teammate. So I think I like her for to like potentially get out of the prelims, and if she gets out of the prelims, I think I could see her making the finals. But I think the problem is that she's just in that loaded heat,
yeah.
and that's what makes things a little tricky. So
I agree. For wild card, I have Juliet Cherevet. She's someone that
mhm.
I think could finish as high as like third, but I think in this loaded heat, a little bit of inexperience. Although, I mean, that hasn't seemed to bother her at all as she's gone through regionals, gone through Big 12 championships. That has not seemed to be an issue whatsoever. I think she could just because of this heat miss out on finals, but I really like what I've seen from her, and I think when you see my predictions, I think that'll bear out where how high I am on her in the 15.
My X factor, my wild card, I guess you could say, it's like one of three people. I think I'm gonna say Lindsey Butler of Virginia Tech.
Sure.
Super fit. She's, yeah, I think fit enough to be an All American, but like just how good is she? Because remember, like she had one of the top mile times, if not the top
Mm-hmm.
mile time last winter, not this past winter, but the winter
Yep.
before in 2023. She's experienced the turnover, but like she's just not as proven over this distance as a few other women. Was the last national meet just a fluke? I think it was because it was at altitude. There's that kind of factor. She's also in like that brutal first heat. And then when I kind of think about like the other women who are kind of like X factors, I can't help but think like Chloe Forrester has learned a lot from her last mile
Yep.
experience at the indoor national meet. She's been phenomenal this season, really, really good. There just seems to be racing with a lot more conviction. So I'll kind of take those two. I think you can maybe throw in like,
Judy Kaz guy was someone
yes,
else
that
that I
was the
had on
other
there.
one, Judy
Yeah.
Kosgei. You beat me to it. So, like we're women, it's like tons of raw talent. Do they know what they're doing as freshmen on the national stage? And not all the time you do. So,
Absolutely. All right, let's move on to the men's 1500. So, in this men's 1500, I mentioned earlier in the women's 800 discussion that they had one of the worst like heats in the entire national championships. The worst is almost certainly the second heat of the men's 1500,
this is so.
which is a blood bath. Reinhard Harrison, great job getting here, sir. You have zero chance at making it. Alex Stitt, no chance. Peter Smith, I'm sorry, no chance. There are 9 men in here outside of those 3 guys, really. And Charlie O'Donovan, sorry, you're kind of on the fringe. So it's like 8.5 that you could make very compelling All American. Like this could be your All American group. Like, and I'll walk you through. It's Isaac Baston, Nathan Green, uh, Ezekiel Ropp, Elliot Cook, Adam Spencer, Colin Solomon, Luke Hauser, Joe Waska.
And that's
Like
in
that.
addition to Alex Stitt, Peter
Yeah.
Smith, Reinhard Harrison, and Charlie O'Donovan. Yeah.
Like that could be your 8. Like the guys that I listed, like that could be your all-American like 8, and they are all in one heat together. It is absolutely ridiculous. There are going to be great names that do not make the finals because the first heat is not good. Like yeah, you made it to the national championships. It's a huge accomplishment, but there's just way too many East guys that aren't quite up to the same level as a lot of these guys that are in the second heat. It is going to like some of these guys in this first heat are just going to have like I feel like a walk in the park. Like Liam Murphy, Ethan Strand, Parvesh Khan, Gary Martin, Anas Sai. Like those should be the 5. Like that should be a quite an easy run through for them. I have zero idea what we're going to see out of the second heat.
There are 12 individuals in the first heat. 11 of them are from the East region, which is fascinating. That second heat is, I mean, like there's just be times where it's like use common sense. Yes, I know we're going by the book, but like use common sense. I mean, look at the guys here that like you have in this field. It's unbelievable. In terms of national title favorites, this is where it gets a little tricky.
I just had a question mark next to that.
Okay, cool. I think there are 4.
There's at least 3, I think.
There's
right?
at least 3. I think the 3 that we have in mind are Hauser, Spencer, Colin Solomon.
Yep.
And then the 4th one is probably Nathan Green. I mean, he's run 334 and he's the defending champion. Like, what does he need to do?
Yeah. You're right. It's just
who would have been your 4th if it wasn't Green? Murphy?
I don't think I necessarily would have had a 4th because I think then that just opens the door in my mind to like a lot of other guys.
I don't think Green opens the door. I think he's the defending champion who's run 334. Like I don't think he does it. Like
no, you make a compelling argument, and I don't necessarily disagree too much with that. I in my mind those I think are the 3 main guys, but there's just it seems like there's so little separation between them and like our all-American favorites. Like I could absolutely see. I mean, we've seen Elliott Cook beat a lot like Luke Hauser this year. Like we've seen guys that you wouldn't necessarily expect to be all-American favorites come in and beat some of these guys. So I think it is those 3. It's gonna be brutal to pick between one of those guys. I have a selection made, but I'm probably gonna go back and forth on that over the next few days.
Now I have to figure out who you picked. I'm so fascinated. Well, there's some interesting picks here. Oh, okay. All right. In terms of like your sleepers, for the title, I think that's like a Liam Murphy kind of conversation. Yeah. You could convince me as like a deep sleeper for the title is Ethan Strand or Parvesh Khan. Some of those guys. I think in terms of like the All-American picture, love Damian Hackett. I think he's in a great heat that he can absolutely get out of. I think it could be fast, but not like overtly fast. I think he is tactically one of the single best runners in this field. I think he's just very underrated. I could absolutely see him being an All-American. And in fact, I might actually just predict that. So
that's how I feel about Wes Porter. And I don't think I'm going to predict him to be an All-American, but I do think that he's in that first heat. He's running with teammate Gary Martin. He's experienced runner, hasn't run anything crazy fast this year, but knows his way around these kind of fields. I could definitely see him making it through and like finishing 10th at the finals and being very close to getting one of those All-American spots. For wild card, I have Elliott Cook. I can't quit him after those Pac-12 performances. I think he has just a very wide range of outcomes. If he was in this first heat, I think I would consider him like an All-American lock, but I don't think you can really call that many guys an All-American lock in the second heat.
The most obvious wild card in this field, it's so apparent. It's Anas Asai.
Well,
I
yeah.
don't know if he's going to finish his prelim race. But I don't. There's multiple instances where he has not.
He's not going to be pushed nearly as hard in this prelim as he has in
Are
years
we
past.
sure? Are we sure? Because if you think about like some of the guys in that second heat, I think they're going to be trying to play cat and mouse because they don't want to put themselves as a sacrificial lamb in that second heat.
Yeah, I agree,
Although I guess
but I don't
you
like.
go
I
back for
think
that
he's not going to
argument.
have to go to like his like highest gear in this first heat to make sure he qualifies.
I mean, did he have to go? Did he have to do that during the winter months?
No, but I think he had to get a little closer than I think he'll have to this weekend.
Yeah, they still had to be pretty honest in that first heat. They were 357 back in the mile at the indoor national meet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's my X factor there. It's a necessity. I mean, he just has to be. I don't know how else you could do that. Going back to that second heat though, you mentioned Reinhard Harrison, maybe Charlie O'Donovan. So I think this already answers my question. Alex Stitt and Peter Smith. Of those four, who is the most likely to get out?
I think Charlie O'Donovan.
Charlie O'Donovan. Okay, so now
he's run the times.
Okay, let me now break it down to those three. Now get rid of Charlie O'Donovan. Of those three remaining. Alex, I agree.
And I realized as I was doing my predictions, I was like, I look like the biggest Oklahoma State fan in the world because I like a lot of the, especially in the long, like the 5K, 10K distances on both men and women's side. I just like what we've seen out of Alex Stitt. It's unfortunate that he's in this heat. I think you can make a pretty compelling argument that he'd make it out of the first because he's just been a very competitive runner at high competitions over the last year or so. But it's just gonna be a bloodbath in that second heat.
Yeah, it is going to be a bloodbath, and I cannot believe they actually put all those guys together. So
we talked about our three before we talked about our three favorites. They're all in the same heat. That should never happen. That is ridiculous.
That is ridiculous. Okay, moving off of that, let's go to the women's 5K. The pretty obvious favorite here.
Yep.
Parker Valby. She will be coming off the double in 10K. The next tier of women in that, I think we would put. Who would we put in there? Who would you put in that next tier?
This was very hard for me to do predictions on. I think the next tier definitely includes Hilda Olamamwe. I think you have to put in Chloe Scrimger.
Mm-hmm.
Bailey Hertenstein as well.
Oh, really?
I think she's back to where she like when she was being very competitive, like at the national side. I think she's back, and so she's run good times. She's experienced. I think we can put her in this group, and then Taylor Rowe would be the other one.
Yep.
Because
Maya Ramsden.
So many women, and this is probably a good segue to what you're about to say. So many women coming back from like the 15, like that. It just like cannibalizes half this field in terms of like you feel like their ability, and you could actually put Margot Appleton, I think, in almost that second group.
Yeah,
as well.
That's true. I think you probably could. Yeah. Man, this is a tricky field. I wasn't like as worried about this field, and then you kind of explained it. In terms of your sleepers, who are you taking? Let's ignore this. Let's just go sleeper for All American. The sleeper for the title would be
ridiculous. I think Amy Bunnage, just because high ceiling, she's not doubling back like a lot of these other women. She hasn't been nearly at her best compared to what we saw during the indoor season, but I think she's someone that you at least know has the capabilities to run a good enough time to get one of those All-American spots.
And I would want Sam Bush to be my sleeper, but she's coming back from the 15. Yep. Man, it's so hard because like I like these women like in other events. I'll say Chloe Thomas at Connecticut. I think she's shown us
Good one.
enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think she's shown us enough to be like, hey, she's fresh. She's been consistently under 1540 in her 2 or 3 instances this spring. She's been fairly steady. She's a veteran. And I don't trust a lot of these women doubling back
Mm-mm.
because Ramsden's doubling back, Valby's doubling back, Bush is doubling back.
Hartman,
Someone else, Rose, probably
Rowe,
doubling back. Yeah, is Hartman
Scrimger.
doubling back?
Is she in the 10K?
Hartman. Yeah, 10K.
And
Yeah,
then
10K. You're right.
Asakol, Cherubit, Olomamwe. Yeah.
And Alabama was in the 10K, right?
Yeah.
Yes. No.
Is she not?
Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. You're right. She is. Sorry, it's my fault. So yeah, so that's who I'm going with. Do you have any more sleepers or an X factor?
For like a wild card, I think it has to be like one of these women doubling back from the 1500, like someone like Ramsden or Cherubit, like someone that like clearly would be talented enough to be very competitive, but it's a matter of like, one, do they decide to run, and
Right.
two, like, what do they have left in the tank? Especially, I'm curious to see how Valby runs this, because she always runs pedal to the metal, but she's going to be coming back after a 10K from 2 nights prior, and she's got to have like kind of an eye towards like her Olympic trials. I wonder if she tries to like not go like 15 flat pace and like maybe just decides to run like 15-20 pace and then pick it up in the last like K or two. Because if she runs it that approach, then could see a lot of these women coming back from like the 1500 actually hanging on a lot more and snagging one of those All-American spots.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I think you could. Yeah, I just don't know if she has the ability to run slow. like a slow day for her is like something that most women still can't do. Like
Yeah,
an easier 5K is like 15-19, and like 99% of those women can't do it. Like 98. You
exactly.
know. My X factor I think is going to be Solana Yildiz. You run 15-15, that's in top 10 all time mark or close to it. And yet
We didn't put her in that second group.
we didn't put her in that second group, and she didn't look great at the West Regional meet. She's pretty inexperienced at that event. This is a different beast of a field. I think she's a wild card. I don't really know if I think if anyone says that they know exactly what they're getting out of Ayildiz, I think they'd be lying.
Yes, absolutely. Couldn't agree more there. All right, let's go to the men's 5K. And again, very clear favorite here. Nico Young is going to be the one that kind of dictates this race. And I think that's what everyone else is going to be keying on. He should win this race, in my opinion, going away, if he looks like he has over the last couple months. Who's in that next group for you?
Robinson, Samuel, and Wolf.
Yep. All right.
And Masao. I'm gonna put Masao in there.
All right. Hey, I like that. I actually don't necessarily have him in that group, but I think I think I predicted him in the top half of the field. So I don't disagree there too much. Is there a whole lot to say here about like the front of the race? Because I think it's just going to be like Nico Young, I think, is going to chill for a little while and then push the pace at some point and see who can go with them and then break them and win.
What do you think like Wolf and like Robinson are thinking? And I guess Samuel too. Because like they saw what Nico did at the indoor national meet. He did it twice. He pretty
Yeah.
much did the same exact thing twice. So what if I'm them? I'm like, am I going to be the aggressor? Which I think would be a bad idea. Am I going to be the one who like waits? But like, do I have to then be the first to put in my move? I don't know. Like I don't know like what the right way is to beat Nico Young nowadays, which is a wild thing for me to say.
I think you just stick the strategy that's always been the strategy for Nico Young, is just hang on him and hang on him for as long as you can and see if you're there with 200 to go. Like I think if you try to out aggressive him, you're going to lose because he's going
Yeah,
to just have more in the tank than you no
that's
matter
true.
what. So I think that's you can only prepare yourself mentally maybe better and maybe do workouts where there's pickups. I'm sure that's what they've been doing is preparing for these kind of situations, and you just hope that that better preparation pays off because I think that's your only shot.
Outside of that group, where are you seeing the sleepers as? Who do you like there?
I really like Jackson Sharp. I think
Mm-hmm. Yep.
he's like, despite not running anything super quick in the 5K this year, uh, I think he's someone I feel very confident in being an All American. He shows up every year at the outdoor meet in the 5K and exceeds expectations. It seems like I think he'll do it once again here.
I agree. Totally agree. I like. Who do I like? I'm not gonna lie. I don't really love a lot of the guys in this field. I just gotta be totally blunt. I don't love a lot of these names. I think Marco Langone might be my name. Like, let's see him get like a back end All American
Sure.
spot. Um, because like you kind of go down the list and like outside of that top 4 or 5 guys that we were just talking about, like, I
I
don't
like
like
Will Smith.
love anyone in this field.
I think he's been on the upswing. But yeah, I completely hear that because and moving on to kind of wild cards, you have these two super talents that we haven't seen that much of, and who knows how fit they are slash how like uh, injury free and healthy they are, and that's Graham Blanks and Rocky Hansen. They
Hmm.
made it this far, which obviously is a great sign. And Hansen's obviously still very young, but the flashes he showed during cross country season, you have to consider him one of the most talented guys in the country. And Graham Blanks, obviously, we know what he can do at the top of his game. He was arguably the best runner in the country for like a 4 month span, 5 month span during the fall and this past winter. But obviously, we don't know exactly where he is. Those two guys, I think, will be the ones that just have a lot of variability.
I don't know how I feel about Alex Mayer because like he's just been
Yeah.
eh. Like he hasn't been bad, but I'm like, give me more. And it feels like he's just kind of positioned himself just to get by this season, and like he hasn't really kind of put himself out there, which makes me scared because he's been really good in the postseason as of late. Like last winter, he was exceptional after doing something pretty similar of like running well, but not like running well enough to be on our radar kind of thing. I don't know. I think he's the X factor for me. I don't know exactly how I'm going to feel about Mayer now. I feel almost like compelled to put him in my predictions, but the resume says like, maybe, but maybe not as well.
I
So
think he'll be like a double All American and score 3 points. That's kind of where I'm at with him.
yeah, okay, that's fair. That's fair.
um,
I have to double check if you actually delivered. If that's how you didn't quite reflect that, but okay.
okay. Oh yeah. I did I put him in the 5K? Is that where I'm missing him? I feel like
No,
I did in the
you
10K.
did not put him in the 5K.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he was one of my last cuts. So yeah, I agree with that sentiment. Let's move on to the women's 10K. And here again, we have another overwhelming favorite in Parker Valby. And then we have a lot of other women. I think Hilda Olmamame is that number 2. I think you probably throw in Scrimger,
Mm-hmm.
Rowe again.
Yep.
And I think that's it for the next group. And then
Think you're right.
goodness knows what happens after that. Making predictions for this was like throwing darts because I have no idea. I like Tanisima. I think she'll probably be an All American. I like what I've seen out of like Gabby Hentman lately, but I don't feel confident in anyone.
Do you feel that Grace Hartman is closer to that tier of like Scrimger, Rowe, and whoever else we just
Yeah,
said
yeah.
all in one way? Do you feel she's closer to that tier or the next best tier?
I think the better tier. I think
I agree.
she's like kind of in that would be like headlining that next group. I think,
I agree. I
in
agree.
my mind. And
Who's your sleeper for All American here?
whew, I guess she doesn't really count as a sleeper. Give me Peyton. No, I like
Okay.
her talent. She might just not know any better than
Is
running
that a
super
pun?
well at nationals, and putting her nose in there and ending up in a great spot.
Also, by the way, I don't know if we actually got her name right. I think it's like pronounced like no we or something like
No,
that.
okay. Well, that yeah.
Yeah, I think it's
Let
like
us
no we.
know if
Yeah.
we're pronouncing things correctly because I
Yeah, I
will
try
say
to
them.
remember these things, but like, there's a lot of things that we like don't pronounce correctly, and people are like, "It's this with this inflection point and the silent Batman symbol," and I'm like, I'm trying my best, but we do try to like get it
Yes.
right sometimes, and so I think it's actually Noe, so Peyton Noe, but
Okay.
uh, the point stands. I think supernaturally talented, could
Yep.
take advantage of what's going to be an aggressive field. The inexperience scares me a little bit. That's where I'm like, I'm not sure. But that's not exactly her fault, you
Yep.
know. Um, Lily Murphy, and then there I go talking about a sophomore. But I think Penn's Lily Murphy's been really,
She's been
really good.
yep.
Great at Raleigh relays, fantastic in the 10K at the Ivy League championships, solid, steady. Just like she doesn't look strained when she's racing. She actually looks super smooth. I just think she's a really good, comfortable pick. I could see her placing like fifth or sixth, and I would not
Mhm.
be surprised at all. I really like Lily Murphy. I think she's going to be an All American, and I'm pretty comfortable about that.
Yeah, I don't even know if that's necessarily like that big of a dark horse. I agree. I think she's just good, and I think
Argue, dude, for the sake of the podcast. Argue, please.
no, I like that. For wild card, I have Racina Machu. I think she's again a little inexperienced, but has proven that she can run quick times. Talented runner. I truthfully, with like the lack of like overwhelming talent in that like third group, I think she could end up finishing as high as fifth. Could also see her finishing 15th.
uh, yeah, I think okay. So now, and from an X Factor perspective, yes. Um, Andre
That was
Markezich,
my number two. Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
that's she's my sleeper. Let's go through her resume here.
Mhm.
She was a DNF for the ACC Indoor Championships in the 5K. Went to the outdoor season, ran 32:36 for 10,000 meters to get second at the Raleigh Relays. Ran a 16 flat 5K at the Wake Forest Invite. Was a unexciting and frankly poor 16:18 5K at the ACC Championships, but then gets six running 33:03 over 10,000 meters at the East Regional meet. This is not the first season where she's run under 33 minutes before. She ran 32:50 last year at the Stanford Invite while at Washington. Is it just one of those things? Like, I mean, she was a fine scorer for Notre Dame during the fall, and then came out of nowhere to be an All American. And when I look at how like what her resume has been like, I can't help but be like, man, I have no idea what I'm going to expect from her. She feels like a massive wild card, and I think the resume, you couldn't like look at that and be like, oh, I know what I'm getting out of her.
Yep, I was deciding between her and Machu, so I co-sign everything you just said. Let's move on to the men's 10K. Again, overwhelming favorite. I think that we're sensing a theme here there's a few races where it is like there's a lot of different names, and then there's a significant amount of races where there is really only one, and it'll be quite the surprise if we see anybody besides Haptum Samuel run or win this 10K. He has been by far the best 10K runner in the country besides Nico Young. And with Nico Young not competing, he automatically gets that favorite spot. Who do you have as his biggest competitor?
I was going to ask you the same thing. I think it's Victor Kiprop.
I think yeah, I like him a lot. I also like I think Ernest Chariot just because he's run the time and I think has the potential to at least
So why are
hang.
we not saying Alex Phillip then?
Yeah, and that's a little contradictory because I am very on the fence about Alex Phillip. He's kind of like I think he's my wild card piece. I guess it's
I
like,
don't think you have anything to back that up, though.
no,
I
I
don't think like
don't.
you
I
have a good
just don't
reason.
know if I completely buy that he's quite at this level. Like, and I think he's an All American.
Yeah.
Um, but I don't know if he's competing for an NCAA title level. I think that's the
Yeah,
biggest
so
difference.
you essentially think that Phillip has been proven to be the all-around better 10K runner, but that Ernest Chariot has a greater upside. Is that fair to
Yep,
say?
100%.
Interesting. Okay. I don't disagree with that. I think I would actually borderline agree with that. I just like I try to like remove bias as much as I can. But I agree with you. I don't know what it is. I don't think Philip can win a national title. I do think he's like a borderline All American lock slash maybe he is an All American lock. Um, I don't know, man. That's hard because he's looked great this
Hmm.
season. Hasn't really given us a reason like to doubt him. I still think he probably belongs in that second tier of men. I just think of the men who could beat him. I think it's Victor Kiprop, and I really don't know. Like maybe a super healthy, everyone's clicking Alex Mayer, but I don't think we're going to see that version of him.
Yeah.
I think that's it. I don't love this field. I got to be honest. I was writing the preview for it, and I was
No.
like, this is a field. Don't love it.
Who's your dark horse out of your options that you don't like?
Kale Grotenhuis of Northern Arizona.
Okay.
10K, 5K, double national qualifier. 13:39 to Brian Clay to win his heat. He took down Ben Perrin and Matthew Rickman at the Big Sky
Hmm.
Championships for a sub 29 conversion. He's been really, like, quietly, really solid. Like,
Yeah.
really, really solid. Um, and with a lot of the names, like you gotta go through there and you're like, hey, you tell me that you like this guy more than Kale and this guy more than
Yeah.
Kale and this guy. I'm like, I don't think I would say that about a lot of these guys. And I think I like I don't know if there are 8 men better than Kale Grotenhuis in this field. That are definitively better, I should say.
Yeah, no, I hear you. My pick is Adisa Guadia of Oklahoma
Yeah,
State, and
great
I
pick.
think this is where I think I had all three Oklahoma State guys as All Americans. I really like just what all of them bring to the table. I think the fact that they're all together, I think bodes well for them. They can come in with a pretty similar race plan, and I when you look at the rest of the field, I don't think there's three guys or there's eight like I guess it would be six guys more talented than these three guys to snap up all the All American spots.
We need to talk about these predictions, by the way, after we get off here.
Are they
I
are they formatted weird? I did them on my phone,
no,
so
they're not formatted weird. I just there's some contradictory
sure. Okay.
statements being
Well,
made.
hey, I did them late last night, so I'm sure there's some things I need to iron out. Like I said, first draft.
The man has 2 kids, everyone. All right, like let him win. Like, um, who's your wild card?
uh, Kira
Mm,
I think for a lot of the similar reasons as we've been saying about a lot of these guys, like he's obviously great on the grass, great in the longer distances, but we haven't seen him run exceptionally well this year. So I think there's some pedigree there that in this kind of field could help him rise to the top. He can run with his teammate Patrick Kiprop, but he could also just revert to how we've seen him for most of the year and finish in the back half.
I yeah, I struggle with Kuramiego, so I think that's fair. I'm gonna take, and I just had his name. Where are they? Sanel Masando of Iowa
Yeah.
State. Um, he's actually been really good this spring. Like has pieced together some great races. Um, how does he handle this field? Like I just don't know. I don't know. Like I think this is ironically this is the best he's ever looked, and yet I don't know if I see him being a 10K All American in the field that I like the least,
Yeah.
which is like very hypocritical of me to say, and I recognize that, and I'm sorry, Now, granted, I didn't predict him to be an All-American in the fall,
No.
so like it's I'm staying true to that. But yeah, Sanel Masando, I just wonder. I'm like, okay, championship race, like it's probably going to be fast, so I guess that makes sense for him. But like, am I really going to put him over XYZ? And I
Yeah.
don't really know. So
Yep. No, that's an excellent pick. Let's move on to the women's steeplechase. And I I don't know if this is just do we think this is a favorite list of one, or do we I mean we have to include Markozich, I guess, too.
we have to include Markozich. It's Doris Lemagol of Alabama. It's Olivia Markozich of Notre Dame.
Lemon Goal has clearly been the better runner this season. I don't think that is a shock to say, but we've seen Markozich reach extreme highs in this event and at the national championship before. So it would be foolish to rule her out. I just truthfully don't see Lemon Goal losing. Like, she just looks so good.
Yeah,
We said the
yeah,
same thing about
I
Karen
agree.
Iskate coming into this last year. So I mean,
Yeah, but I
it's not
don't think we
impossible.
saw her as like unbeatable. I think
Yeah,
we gave like we said like she's the favorite because she deserves to be the
right.
favorite and she should be the favorite. But I don't think we said that she was unbeatable.
No,
Lemigol's it's really like I mean I could see her running the NCAA record. I
sure.
think she could absolutely run the NCAA record. I think it would be um, irresponsible to dismiss Markovic from the title picture, given how amazing
Mhm.
she peaked last year. She's run 9:17, which is faster than anything that Lemingol has run, and I just refuse to count her out given how talented she is. So I think it's still Lemingol has the edge by pretty clearly, but I to not put Markovic in there would be just not the right move. I don't think from us. Who are you? Who's like that next tier for you? Like who do you have in that?
Yeah, this one was tough. I think I have Karen Iskate. I have Sophie Novak,
Hmm.
and then Elise Thorner. Those are the
Yep.
three.
Would you be willing to put Jeanette Schraft in there?
I'm like close there. I like her. I think I picked her. I'm pretty sure I picked her as an All American. I think that she's going to be like in that kind of group, but I don't think she has the upside that a lot of those women that I just listed have, and so that's why I think I'll probably keep her out of that group.
Interesting. Okay. Um, Sleeper.
This one's tough. I don't know if Laura Taborda necessarily counts as a sleeper, but I feel exceptionally good about her finishing as an All American. She's
I
experienced.
think she's a safe pick.
Yeah, she's run well. Like I really like what we've seen out of her, and in a field that I don't really like that much, I think she's someone that I feel very comfortable finishing in the top 8.
I agree with you. Don't love this field. I'm trying to like figure out like who I like. Um, I'll go McKenna Vanderheiden of West Virginia. 10:02, 10:13, 10 flat. If she runs a little bit faster, the field naturally has one or two names fall off.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe she gets into the finals. Maybe she sneaks into a back end All American spot. I'd probably say her. I don't know if Taylor Lovell counts as a sleeper. I don't think she does. I
Yeah.
don't think the same thing counts as like Emma Tavella. I don't think she counts as a sleeper, which is only a compliment. Would you put Kayla Shira as a sleeper?
Yeah, I think you could put her in there.
Yeah, she'd probably be my other name. So
Yeah, no, I like those. As far as wild card, I think it's Karen Iskate. She obviously has the
yeah,
highest end potential out of anybody besides our top two. And she hasn't been quite at that level this year. She's run 937 this season. But like maybe she's just taking it a little bit slower. She's trying to peak at the right time this year. And if she does that, like she could run like she can run 920s. And there's not really that many people in this field that has that potential.
Kansas's lone Latima. She has been the one name who I cannot figure out
Mm-hmm.
in her last 4 races going from late season to early season. She's gone 10-10, 10-22, 9:58, 10:20, which is I have no idea how to figure that out. She went to the national meet last year, ran 9:58. Before that, she ran 9:51 at the West Regional Championships. But before that, she ran 10:17 at the Big 12 Championships. It's just impossible to figure out what I'm gonna get from her. And I think she's clearly talented. She's gone under 10 minutes multiple times, and in a field that is not super exciting, you would think that she could maybe crack the finals. So I just don't know what version we're gonna get from her.
Yep, I agree. Good pick. And let's wrap it up with the men's steeplechase. I think we agree that there are 3 possible favorites here. We have
Yep.
Nathan Mountain of Virginia, Abdel Hakim Abu Zahir of Eastern Kentucky, and then we have Victor Kipyego of Texas A&M. For me, the more I've thought about it, the more I think Mountain ultimately has the slight edge over these two. I truthfully don't love what we've seen out of Kipyego this season. Although the top end potential is there in a way that if everything goes perfect, I don't know if he can be beaten. But there's a lot of things that have to line up for that to happen. I think Mountain's the safest choice. I also like his kick. I trust him to be able to have the fitness to stick there to the end and the kick to take down pretty much anybody. And that includes Abu Zuhair, who's been really like faultless throughout this season. No reason not to pick him, but I just like what we've seen out of Mountain a little bit more.
Yeah, I don't totally disagree. Yeah, I think I agree. I think Mountain is the favorite. I think the other 2 guys are who I throw in there as potential candidates. I think you could maybe make an argument for Rob McManus to be in that fold. I think he's just not quite there because I think if you do that for him, then you kind of open the floodgates for
Yeah.
everyone else. My dark horse is going to be because there's a lot of guys in this field who I like.
Yep.
Like a lot. And there's other guys who are just like I don't think like I don't think Brett Gardner is a dark horse. I don't think Levi Taylor's a dark horse, or Gabble Saipierda, or Parker Stokes, or Rob McManus, or
No.
CJ Singleton, or Shisama. Like I'm going through the list, I'm like these are all good. Yassine Sato is another one. James Corrigan. Everyone who I just listed, it's like
I think it's
how
gonna
good
be
they
pretty
are.
chalk. Like I think that's kind of
I think
where
so
I've
too.
I've come up with is like I think like those top 10 are gonna be kind of the top 10 that we see in the finals, and then there will be like 2 other guys that maybe are a little bit surprising.
If I had to pick one, yes, Estanis Ruiz.
I was kind of looking at him. He's the Portland runner. He'd broken out last year in this event, and now he's
two
kind of
years.
2 years ago, yeah. And now he's been at this level for a little bit longer. I don't hate
Ran
that.
147 for 800 meters
Oh,
this season.
jeez, that's insane.
Yeah. It was a crazy turnover.
I'll
Who's your like? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I cut you
Yeah,
off.
I'll go with sleeper. I'll go with Christian Imroth of Eastern Kentucky. He run 8:35 this year. They have very good success. This program does. He has his teammate Abu Zuhair with him. They're in the same heat. I think he could have another breakout performance. You could also put him in that wild card category because
Yeah,
there
that's
could be a
true.
lot of possibilities for him this week.
Yeah, 1 pen relays,
Yep.
which is big. My wild card is Gabble Saipierda.
Yeah. That's
Super aggressive front runner. Don't know what's going to happen here. This is like and like he's got Mountain and Abu Zir that he has to deal with, and like that is not fun. like, I wonder like how he's gonna vary his approach because he's just been like gas from the start, and I don't know. I don't know how to feel about that.
Yeah, no, that's I was looking at him as well because yeah, the way he's run, and I've mentioned a couple times, I like that he's like put himself in those positions, but now he has to be smart. Now, like all that preparation was done so that he could run quick paces if he's in the final at the national championships and not feel like he's going all out. So I think that is hopefully will be a benefit to him. The other name that I have here for wildcard is Parker Stokes. We've seen him run some exceptional times. We haven't seen him quite to his best from, what was it, a year or two ago? But
2
he's
years.
I think it's 2 years. Still exceptionally talented, has the turnover that can compete with almost anybody. I could see him finishing as high up as third, but I could also see him being more of a back end All-American who's just like eighth or ninth.
Okay. Yeah, I can get behind that. I think that's. I see where you're coming from. I think I see him closer to like the fourth range, fourth to sixth. Is like thinking where I'd be more comfortable. But is there a scenario where he makes the finals but fades to eighth or ninth? Yeah, sure. Yeah. I can get behind that. Sure. All right. Are we wrapped on the steeplechase?
We're all done. I think those are all the events.
Fun fact: the Penn Relay Summer Showcase, which I didn't know it was a thing. It happened on June 1st. Tanoda Matsada of Georgetown ran 1:45.17. Yeah.
Did not make nationals.
And did not make nationals. Which is wild. Thought that was interesting though. But that's it, Ben. That's all I've got.
All right. Well, this was great. Make sure you guys are checking out the site. We got all those previews going up by the time you are listening to this podcast, I think. We got predictions coming. Make sure you're taking a look there. I very well could have changed my mind 3 different times by the times you see that. But it's going to be an entertaining weekend. We're excited to have you guys along with us. And we can't wait to talk to you. I can't wait to talk to Garrett and the rest of you next week when we figure out all our predictions were either exactly right or exactly wrong.
Exactly right, because they always are. Anyways, well, Ben, thank you. Thank you to everyone who's listening. Go get a subscription. Go leave a 5-star rating and review. Thank you to everyone who did it on Spotify. It really was appreciated. And then go subscribe on YouTube. We're going to have YouTube videos up there, some uploads. So post-race interviews. We're going to have Andrew LeMay also there, back on the camera, taking some shots. So very, very excited. And of course, some post-race first thoughts analysis throughout the weekend. So Ben, that's all I got. And I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Until next week, Garrett, I'll talk to you.
I'll talk to you.